All right. Okay, I think we're ready. Hello and welcome to our daily success webinar. Great to see you guys on here today. Man, I hope everyone had an amazing weekend. And can you guys believe it? The 4th of July is coming up in a week. Man, crazy. We're coming up on the halfway mark of the year. Anyway, great to be on here with you guys today. And thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us on this beautiful Monday. For those of you brand new, we do these webinars Monday through Friday at the same exact time. So try to be in here as often as you possibly can. It only takes one idea, just one simple idea to completely change your life. And if you're on here every day, I guarantee you're going to get plenty of ideas will absolutely transform your life. All right, so let's get right into it. So as you guys already know, on Mondays, I share an inspirational story with you guys to help you, kick off the week on the right foot. And it's just a fantastic way to start the week and just get you in the right frame of mind and get you that success mindset and, give you that momentum and inspiration you need to make this an amazing week. So I love sharing these stories with you on Mondays. Today, I want to share with you guys a story that I don't think I've shared this one with you before. I couldn't find it in my notes anywhere. And so, again, I think this might be the first time I've shared this story. There are a few stories I've shared with you a couple of times because they are so good. And this is definitely going to be one that I'm going to share on multiple occasions. But anyway, I heard this from a couple of my mentors, and I absolutely loved it. I'm going to read this to you because I don't feel like I would really grasp the full power of the story just by sharing it or paraphrasing it. So I'm going to read this to you. So sit back and pay attention. And when you get done here, I want you guys in the comments, I want you to share with me what lessons you learned from this story, how it inspired you, or, just what it's done to help you. So let's chat about that afterwards. Anyway, so this is a story about a gentleman by the name of Cliff Young, a gentleman who is a farmer in Australia. And so every year, thousands of runners converge on Australia to run the annual 544-mile endurance course from Sydney to Melbourne. This elite event is thought to be one of the world's toughest ultra marathons. It can take up to 5 days to cross the finish line, so only athletes at the top of their game typically dare to take it on. Most of these seasoned runners are young, generally under 30, and have backing of high-level sports sponsors such as Nike. But all that changed in 1983 when a 61-year-old competitor by the name of Cliff Young entered the fray. Young strolled to the starting blocks wearing overalls and work boots. He made a strange sight standing in his everyday clothes with his race number proudly displayed on the back of his shirt. So I want to pause here for a moment. He showed up to this race, this ultra marathon, in his overalls, his Oshkosh overalls, a ball cap, t-shirt, and his work boots. He didn't even have running shoes on. It was his work clothes, his work boots, his overalls, t-shirt, and a cap. He showed up and they're like, what are you here for? And he says, I'm here to run the race. And they're like, have you ever run a race before? And he's like, no. And they're like, have you worked with a trainer or have you done any training? He's like, no, I haven't worked with a trainer. I haven't done any training. I haven't done anything. And they said, and you plan on running this race? He's like, yeah. He says, I worked on a farm my whole life. And we have a 2,000-acre farm with over 2,000 sheep. And we've never had enough money for horses or a tractor. So I have to walk and run all over this farm. And he says, when the storm rolls in, all the sheep get scattered. And he says, I have to go out and round up the sheep. And he said, sometimes I'll be running for 2 or 3 days straight to gather all the sheep and bring them back in together after the storms. He says, so I run and walk all over. And he says, I figure I can do pretty good at this race because I've been running and walking all over my farm my entire life. I'm 61 years old and I'm in really good shape. And they didn't believe him, but they let him enter the race. So anyway, so here he is at the starting blocks in his, again, ball cap t-shirt, overalls, and work boots. And the strangest sight that you could probably ever see in an ultra marathon. I'm sure a lot of people thought this was a joke or he was just joking around, but he wasn't. Anyway, so like I said, when he was questioned by the media, Cliff was optimistic about his chances. He told the curious press that his hardworking background gave him all the skills and endurance he'd need to finish the race, saying, quote, "I grew up on a farm where we couldn't afford horses or tractors, and the whole time I was growing up, whenever the storms would roll in, I'd have to go out and round up the sheep. We had 2,000 sheep on 2,000 acres. Sometimes I would have to run those sheep for 2 or 3 days. It took a long time, but I'd always catch them, and I believe I can run this race," close quote. They weren't so sure. From the moment the runners left the starting blocks, it looked like the skeptics would be proved right. In the first miles of the race, Cliff was quickly left trailing behind his more experienced runners. The enthralled crowds watching on the sidelines and around the world were bemused, intrigued, and very entertained. Cliff didn't even seem to be running properly. He had a slow shuffle that put him in danger of injury, let alone completing the race. To finish the Australian ultra marathon, runners generally need to hit 18 hours of running a day. This leaves most participants with only 6 hours of sleep at night. So that was the tradition: is you run for 18 hours, you sleep for 6. That's what all these, professional runners had been doing. Okay. But as an inexperienced newbie, Cliff had no such targets. See, and that's the thing, is Cliff had one advantage that the experienced runners didn't have. And the advantage that he had is that he didn't have experience. He didn't have experience. He didn't know what you should or shouldn't do. So in other words, he didn't have any limiting beliefs that were holding him back. Like, you can only run for so long and then you have to sleep. He didn't have those limiting beliefs. He didn't know any different. So as an inexperienced newbie, Cliff, like I said, had no such targets. That first night, he put his head down and continued his slow shuffle throughout the night and into the early morning. When dawn broke, the other runners were amazed to find him still plodding along. According to Cliff, it was all part of the plan. He intended to run constantly, completing the marathon without stopping until he made it past the finish line. After the second day of nonstop running, Young slept for an hour, got up, and ran again, just 1 hour of sleep. By the third day, Young was plastered across newspaper front pages, and cheering crowds urged him on as his lead grew bigger and bigger. By the fourth day, Young had caught the attention of the international media, and he didn't disappoint. A day later, he crossed the finish line in first place. First place, a full 10 hours ahead of the next competitor. He had literally made one of the greatest runs in history. The 61-year-old man had covered 544 miles in 5 days, 14 hours and 35 minutes, the equivalent of almost 4 marathons a day, shattering the previous race record by more than 2 days. He broke the previous record by more than 2 days. And that's how Cliff Young, a 61-year-old farmer, set a new world record for one of the most grueling marathons in the world. He completed the race 2.5 days quicker than the previous record. Cliff was crowned the winner, and the world cheered with him. But when he was handed the $10,000 prize for winning the race, he was actually shocked. He didn't know that there was prize money for winning the race. Okay. And so instead of pocketing the money, which I'm sure he needed, he could have very well used for him and his farm, he decided to give it away. he gave $2,000 to each of the 5 runners who finished right after him. Pretty amazing. But Cliff wasn't done. The very next year, he came back to defend his title. This time, he took 7th place. Again, still a remarkable accomplishment given that he was running with a displaced hip. In 1997, when Cliff was 76 years old, he set out to raise funds for homeless kids by running all 16,000 kilometers of the Australian coastline. The veteran runner made it through 16,000 kilometers before stopping because a crew member was ill. Cliff Young died in 2003 at the age of 81, but his legend still lives on. As a matter of fact, the Young Shuffle is what they called it. So the shuffle that he ran with, they started to call it the Young Shuffle, has earned a place in history all by itself, becoming popular among pro runners as it helped them conserve energy over long distances. You've probably seen the shuffle in action. It's helped at least 3 champions of the Sydney to Melbourne Marathon earn their spot on the top podium. And marathon runners continue to use Cliff's tactics. Most now go without sleep, putting their stamina to the test by running all day and all night. Modern runners owe a lot to this giant of the sport. An Australian treasure loved by fitness fans all over the world, Cliff Young proved that the greatest feats come from testing the limits of your own physical and mental endurance. And that it takes more than trophies and titles to make a true hero. So I love this story. And this is one that I'm going to share in future webinars. It's one worth sharing, once or twice a year on a regular basis. What I'd like you guys to do in the chat is I want you to share with me, what are some ahas you got from this? Like what inspired you about this? What did you learn from this story? This is amazing. I got some things that I learned from it, quite a few things as a matter of fact, but I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts and your input on what you learned and what are some ahas that you got from this story. So let's check our comments here real quick. I want to see what you guys have to say. I'd love to hear this. Oh, Larry, thank you for your message, man. I am sorry to hear that you haven't been feeling well. So I hope you recover quickly. And we look forward to seeing you back on here soon. My goodness, man, get feeling better, brother. Better, brother. Your tongue twister there. Katie. I don't know. He could have done that too, Katie. Katie says, I wonder if he practiced by running from dangerous animals on his farm. That's a very good question, Katie. So that may have happened from time to time. You're awesome. Grace, thank you. Grace, I've got a very busy, Mondays are very, very busy. Could you shoot me a text though? I'd love to help you out. It's just my schedule's packed today. So if you can send me a quick text, that would be awesome. I appreciate it. And I'm here to help you. So thank you, Grace. Thank you for reaching out to me. And I look forward to your text. Thank you. Good to see you on here. Katie. Yeah, it does sound like the tortoise and the hare, right? It does sound like the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins a race. I don't always believe in that philosophy. The tortoise and the hare, of course, and the philosophy behind that. I don't think that's always the best philosophy. It's slow and steady wins the race. There are some instances where, yes, absolutely. But I think there's also incidences where the slow and steady philosophy can actually hurt you rather than help you. So you've got to use some common sense and some logic there. But this definitely is a tortoise and hare, slow and steady race. Absolutely. And this is one of those instances where it does hold true. Absolutely. Tom, that's okay, brother. Hey. Early, late, we'll take you no matter what, man. Just glad to see you on here. Thank you for your message. Bobby, hey, brother. Good to see you on here, man. As always, thank you. There you go. Katie, that's an excellent point. Yeah, that's an excellent point. We shouldn't worry about what other people think about us, whether other people think we're crazy. I've had that thought sometimes too, because, people ask me how I'm doing, and I'm like, man, I'm having the best day of my life. And people sometimes look at me strange, like I'm crazy or weird. And and I've had this thought many times, like, hey, I don't really care if they think I'm crazy or weird. It's okay. I know what's right. I know what works for me, and I don't want to be like most people out there. No, nothing against them. I'm not putting down society, but I don't want to be like everybody else. And so yeah. Hey, who cares if other people think you're a little bit crazy or weird? I'll bet you a lot of people thought Steve Jobs was crazy and weird. A lot of people probably think Elon Musk is crazy and weird. A lot of very successful, and I'm not talking about just wealth. I'm talking about, individuals who were just incredibly influential throughout history, who did amazing things, past presidents, past leaders, successful entrepreneurs, inventors. Again, I'm not talking about just wealthy people, people from all different aspects of life that were the trailblazers. I'm sure a lot of them people thought were weird and crazy, but they didn't care what people thought about them, right? So absolutely, who cares what other people think? All right, if you know what works for you and you know the truth, then stick with it. So thank you, Katie. Very great, very good comment. That's right, Debbie. He didn't have any expectations. Just finish the race. Absolutely, Debbie. Thank you for your message. Marcus. There you go. He was counted out. Absolutely, Marcus. Great message. Absolutely, Paul. That's right. Paul, great message. Knowing yourself and making up your mind will take you through. Exactly. So all great comments. Thank you so much for sharing that. Here's some things that I got from it as well. Okay. Most people wouldn't even attempt that race. Now, keep in mind, most people that competed, that ever competed this, and to this day still compete in it, are in their 20s and 30s. 20s and 30s. Most people in their 40s would not even think about it, let alone their 50s and their 60s. Think about that for a moment. Most people in their 40s and especially 50s and 60s would not even give it a second thought. It's like, no way would they consider, right? Sometimes, so one thing I learned from that is, how many times do we let our age stop us? Not just from running marathons, but how many times do people often think I'm too young or I'm too old for anything? I guarantee you there's some people out there in their 40s or their 50s that are thinking they're too old to do this or too old to do that, too old to start a business. It's too late. If they've struggled all their lives and in their 40s and 50s, they're thinking, well, it is what it is. It's too late to make any changes now. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, or I'm too old to do this, or I'm too old to do that. I'm not talking about just running marathons. I'm talking about anything in life. So many people put limitations on their life based on their age. And this right here is a perfect example. Age is just a number. It's a mindset. I truly believe that age is a mindset. It's just a number. And this is a great example. I think an ultra marathon like this, 544 miles. This is probably the best example in the world that you can have to prove that age does not matter. If you're in your 60s, go out there and start that new business. Okay. Even in your 70s, people are living longer and getting older and healthier for longer. Age does not make a difference unless you let it. It all comes down to your psychology and your mindset, right? Okay. The second thing is, it's kind of like the bumblebee story. You guys heard about the bumblebee? Do you know, this is a fact. Bumblebees, scientists have studied bumblebees, and there's no physiological reason why bumblebees should be able to fly. Everything about them, the aerodynamics, the size of their wings, the weight of their bodies, they should not fly, literally. Scientists, there's no explanation for it. It defies all logic, all scientific explanation, physics. It defies everything. Bumblebees should not fly. But probably the reason that they fly is because nobody ever told them that they can't fly. See, so the other lesson I got from this is how many times do we have these limiting beliefs based on our past experience or past knowledge? We set limitations on ourselves. Sometimes having too much knowledge can hurt you because you have all these fears based on your past experience. You have all these negative and limiting beliefs based on your past experience, all this knowledge you've gathered over the years. And as you get older, you become more fearful, or you have more you think you have more limitations because of all these experiences, all these things you've learned, and that hurts you. So sometimes we have to unlearn what we've learned. We have to unlearn what we've learned. Knowing too much oftentimes can hinder you more than help you. In this example, nobody told him that he couldn't run the race. He couldn't finish the race. Nobody, like the bumblebee. There's no logic. There's no logical. He was in his work boots, not running shoes, work boots, overalls. He didn't have the gear. He didn't have the clothes for it. He didn't have the coach, trainer experience. He didn't study running for years. He didn't prepare for it in any way, shape, or form. Just like the bumblebee. He didn't know any different. He didn't know he couldn't do it. And so he did it. Pretty amazing. I wonder sometimes how many things would we do if we didn't have those limitations? If we didn't keep telling ourselves, I'm too old, too young, or I can't do it because I failed at these things before, or, because of this experience, it doesn't make any sense, why that should work. All these things that hold us back. Anyway, really cool story. Not to mention, I think it'd been one thing to finish the race, but to finish 10 hours ahead of anybody else and to beat the previous record by 2.5 days at the age of 61 in his work clothes, man, it just tells you that there's a lot more that we can do, right? Hopefully it helps you to raise your standards and set new expectations for yourself and what's really possible. It reminds me of David Goggins and what he talks about. And, we can do a lot more than what we think we can do. Right? And that's really what it comes down to. And that's what, it's like that quote by Oprah Winfrey. You don't get what you want, you get what you believe. It really just comes down to belief, right? If you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s or 70s and you think this is it, life's not going to get any better. If that's your belief, if that's your philosophy, well, I guess that's true just because it's your belief. But somebody else in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s can be in the same situation as you and say, you know what, man, I feel better than I've ever felt. I've got decades to go. I'm in the prime of my life. Okay. I can do anything. I can be, do, and have anything. And that person will literally go out and be, do, and have anything because that's their belief. You can have two people in the same age, okay, 60s or 70s, whatever, and they get two completely different results, not because of their age, but because of their mindset, because of their belief system, because of their philosophies. This story truly tells you that there's a lot more that we can be doing with our lives. A lot more that we can be doing. Okay. Let's see. All right. Looks like that's all of our comments. Okay. Sure, Grace. Just got to be quick. But sure, not a problem. All right. Fantastic. Hope you guys love this story. I love it. And hopefully it inspires you. When you hear a story like this, one last thing I want to share. Don't put yourself down. Sometimes when you hear stories of people doing great things, we think less of ourselves. We start to think we're, boy, he's doing that. I suck, right? Something like that. Like, I'm horrible. Sometimes people do that. Don't do that. That's not what this is for. This is to inspire you to show you that, hey, okay, learn from it. You can do more. You can be, do, and have more in life. Guys, it's your mindset and your psychology. That's all he had here. That's the only advantage he had, his psychology and mindset. That's why he won. It wasn't because of his experience. It's all up here. When you change your mindset, you change your life, literally. All right, that's it for today. Like I always say, if you do the things today that most people won't, tomorrow you will have the life that most people can't. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Go out there and make it your best day ever. And we'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. God bless. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.